Hello everybody and welcome back to Polymatrix or Apple Gaming SE, whichever channel you're watching this on. I run them both and this seems like a video that could go on both channels, so I'm going to put it up on both. And so yesterday we had Apple's Wanderlust event where they talked about the new iPhones, the new Apple Watches, and they talked about the new SoCs that come with the new iPhones. And it was nothing particularly inspired, I guess, like from my view, but the gaming performance seemed to be a big jump, we'll say in the right direction. So interesting things that came out is that the 15 Pro and Pro Max are going to get the A17 Pro. It's not called the Bionic anymore, so I'm guessing the Bionic is going to be reserved for the we'll say quote-unquote entry-level new iPhones, whatever the new non-Pro model is. So the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 Plus will get the A16 Bionic. Maybe next year we'll see the A17 Bionic. And so we are going to continue on with the 6-core CPU dominance, 2 performance, 4 efficiency cores. Same thing that's in my iPhone 12, the A12 Bionic and my iPhone 10R. 2 performance, 4 efficiency. But we've had 16 neural engine cores for a while now. So that's double what my iPhone 10R has, and these are supposedly going to have up to twice the performance of the A16 Bionic. I'll be interested to see how that works out. We do have 1 extra GPU core, so looking at the GPU, again, 6 cores on the GPU. It's Apple Design shader architecture up to 20% faster. We're not really sure what that means yet. Improved efficiency and mesh shading, which is all very good. So they said 20% faster GPU, but the caveat here is that this is at peak performance. So at peak performance, you're going to see a spike up to see 20% faster GPU performance, but it's not going to be sustained. So that's something to keep in mind. Performance and efficiency is what they focused on. Complex applications, so they're going to have a much better integration with speeding up rendering times, things like that, or anything that would use the GPU or the neural engine. And then they have new rendering features. Primarily what we're going to look at today is ray tracing, since they brought that up. So to do so, I'm going to slide this over to my second screen so I can look at my notes without giving away all of the juicy details right off. And we are just going to go through the actual Apple presentation. So a couple quick, fast things. So yeah, here they are talking about the GPU, the whole SoC. So we're looking at, what is it, 3 nanometer? Where's the 3 nanometer? There we go. It's like right through here somewhere. So it's a new 3 nanometer process. This is primarily just a marketing term. I wouldn't get too caught up on this. But what this gentleman says right here is that some components are only 12 silicon atoms wide, which is bananas. But so yeah, 12 silicon atoms wide. That's pretty nuts. It gets more and more nuts every year. I don't know why I'm still surprised for it. SoC overall, 19 billion transistors. This is important. It's interesting, I should say. So the CPU is improved. It's not spectacularly improved. There's a 10% bump on the performance cores, but they make no claims about the efficiency cores. So probably going to see, maybe a 200 megahertz, maybe 250 megahertz bump on the efficiency core speed. What is most impressive about this number, however, is to put that into perspective a little bit, is that the M1 chip that was just released a few years ago has 16 billion and the M2 has 20 billion. So the M2 processor that we just got only has 1 billion more transistors. I say 1 billion like it's nothing at all. 1 billion more transistors than this, and it's got 4 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores, and it's got its own graphical stack as well. I forget all the details of the M2 off the top of my head, but we're not talking about the M2 right now. So what's really gotten the big bump here is the GPU. So we're going to try to dissect it a little bit. First off, one of the things that they call out here is, here we go, Pro Class GPU. And one of the things that they notated here is that it's up to 20% faster, which we talked about already. What I think is the interesting component about this Pro Class GPU component or moniker, so when you see this, this is most likely a reference to the fact that this is probably going to be the same GPUs that we'll see in whatever the M3 series of SoCs is going to be next year. Putting it into an iPhone is going to limit this kind of thing to around 8.5 watts. 8.5 watts is a broad guesstimate on my part, based on what the website CPU Monkey estimated that the A16 Bionic was drawing. So, assuming it stays roughly the same, we're going to be looking at somewhere in the ballpark of 8.5 watts, maybe 9 watts. So it's a pro class GPU in terms of its design, but it's not going to be necessarily pro class in terms of performance. You can only do so much within the thermal envelope that is a small handheld device. So, we won't see its full potential for a while. Keep in mind the M1 has 39 watts, was what it draws at the peak. 31 and a, I think it's 31 and a half is what it's estimated the SoC draws, and the M2 is just 20 watts according to Notebook Check's estimates. So that's pretty nuts. So assuming we stay, in the 8-9 range, we're a little less than half of what the M2 is drawing, and we're seeing a pretty meaningful performance improvement, or that's what they're claiming, I should say. We haven't seen anything yet. So let's keep our expectations in check, because, again, 20% performance gain is what's going to come with a couple caveats. So first, one extra core here. So the 16 had 5 cores. This one has 6. This is not a 20% improvement. In terms of number of core counts, yes. But actual real-world performance improvements, I don't think that's really going to be how it works. I mean, maybe in synthetic benchmarks, you might get that when the workload across all 6 cores is exactly the same. But when you're gaming and you have to level out, you basically have to, the system has to prioritize which cores do what work, and they're all going to be doing different work to render images on the screen. It's not going to be a 20% improvement in actual real world. So you're not going to see that in gaming, I should say. So I think AnandTech or Notebook Check is really going to have to see, they're going to have to do like a deep dive, and we're really going to have to see what improvements come as a result of this. It's going to be hard to test because mobile games are oftentimes frame rate capped. So a game might be locked to, like, say, medium quality settings at 60 FPS, and that's the only real metrics we can draw without getting developer tools to monitor, like, battery drain. Like, we can look at a 14 Pro Max that's got, say less than like 50 CPU or battery cycles on it versus a brand new 15 Pro Max, and see which one lasts longer if they're both playing, PUBG medium at 60 FPS. This, of course, assumes that the power draw from the screen is the same. The power draw from system radios, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, that kind of deal, that's all going to be the same. So it's never going to be a perfect apples to apples comparison when it comes to phones. So with all that being said, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. We're going to skip the demo. We're going to come back to it. We're going to skip it for now. And we are going to go right up here to 535. So this is where we're going to get into some of the images that we're going to see for what is the... I'm going to increase the text size of my notes here because it's a little hard to read. Okay. This is where we're going to see some of the actual, we'll see what they give us. How about that? So it's not everything it's cracked up to be. So the first thing we're going to lead in with is Fabrice Nevrez from Ubisoft. So he's ever talking about the Division Resurgence. So in this opening scene, there's a lot going on here. But some of the things that I noticed, like, right away looking at this, it looks like we got some contact shadows here in the vehicles, but not necessarily underneath all of the objects. So, like, this looks like it has a contact shadow, but this doesn't. It looks like it's shadowed on the right side, but not coming from the light source. It's coming from the light source on the left, but I don't see a contact shadow here, which is interesting because they gave him, obviously he's in a studio, and they took the time to craft him and his shadow onto this, whatever this was, green screened or blue screened. We have contact shadows here. It doesn't look like we really have contact shadows under this Sarah. sign here. We got some pretty good lighting coming from off. So the lighting is coming from like the upper left kind of over here. Let's take a look. Whoops. Okay, this goes like really fast. So let's do this. We're going to slow this playback down just a bit. At like 50% speed. How about that? Okay, so as we're taking into this, it's a really smooth transition, by the way. So something to note here, clearly doesn't seem to be any ray tracing going on here from the flames, like not even indirect lighting, so they didn't even like cube map or like pre-bake this in at all. So this coloring is all coming from this light source here, and then whatever we'll say the sun, whatever the top side light source is. So let's keep going here. Nothing really else stands out in that scene, I don't think. So we'll keep moving. Come here, we zoom in. So we have shadows underneath the vehicle, but we don't have, like over here, we're missing our contact shadows here. No contact shadows here when there's a light source this way, so we would expect to see some kind of lighting up underneath this barrier. Here we're getting a little bit, this might just be from compression from the video. I pulled this off of Apple's site, not YouTube's. So I think it's a little less compressed from Apple directly. I can't swear to that, but it seemed when I was originally looking at this, it seemed a little better. And so getting a little, definitely some aliasing right here. So this might be artifacting, but this is definitely some aliasing right here. So as we pan around, we'll see some shadows underneath the vehicles, light coming from a single light source. It looks like it's either, take another look at this real quick. All right, so we don't really get to see, but it looks like it's coming from behind this character perhaps, but it's high up in this direction, so it might be also the sun coming through and going down, like lighting is coming down the main boulevard here. So this was an interesting scene here. It's kind of comes quick, but I wanted to grab it just to try to discuss it a little bit. So there looks like there's a big high up spotlight illumination effect, like up here along the top, that's blasting downward, like almost straight downward. And let me look at my notes because I made some notes about this. It looks like I wrote in here that we're missing contact shadows because the light is coming from the center. So right here, so in the other scene I said contact shadows were missing from the back side of this, but in this scene where the light is in front of it, we don't have contact shadows, and I think that's expected. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a contact shadow here on the back side of this, and then light is bounced. The shadow is cast because of the way the light is coming. Now, if this light is as big as it looks like, I actually don't think this shadow would be quite so contrasty. It definitely wouldn't be this noticeable. Because you can also see how this vehicle is also illuminated. A lot of the top and the front of it is illuminated. You can also see how this shadow right here is almost like directly straight down. It doesn't look like it's at an angle, so I'm not sure how big this light source is supposed to be, but it looks like it's casting shadows maybe a little incorrectly. It's doing its best for sure. Again, see how so much of this is top lit. You get the one little spot right there. This traffic cone looks significantly dimmer. Did my mouse just die? Okay, I thought my mouse died there. So it looks significantly dimmer than this one here. I think my mouse is dying. That's unfortunate. Stand by. So, okay, so moving on here. Gonna let this run forward. All right, so this was an interesting scene as well that I had to make a couple of comments on. So in this top of the taxi scene, it looks like we have an upper left lighting source. So looks like the sun coming down that same boulevard the female character was overlooking just a couple scenes ago. Looks like it's the same kind of area. Very bright light source wherever it is. We have all of these lights back here that don't look like they're casting anything at all. So there's no light coming off of these whatsoever. It doesn't appear. See how all of this hand railing right here is all in darkness, and all of this is dark as well, but that right there is lit. So it's something high up, but there must be a wall that doesn't block this light post. Doesn't look like it blocks that one either, but it covers this statue, the American flag, and most of this in darkness. So the lighting is a little inconsistent. I think they have, some of this looks like it's baked in. So it's probably to save on system resources, keep performance at whatever their target is going to be. But if one of the big components of this whole discussion is ray tracing, we're missing out on some of the indirect lighting specialties of that ray tracing kind of leans into. Now this is an early game, so we can't, all of these that we're going to look at today are early games, so I'm not trying to tear them apart for the sake of tearing them apart. I'm trying to just discuss what we see from what we're given and what Apple has talked about and what we expect from other games that have ray tracing support, even though it's mostly on the consoles and on Windows. But even on consoles and Windows both, really, but on consoles, even that is a subset of lighting options. So ray tracing is difficult to manage, and it's kind of my opinion right now, outside of like Cyberpunk, it's mostly a marketing term. So so I just wanted to, those are kind of the big things that I looked at. Now we're gonna pop back over here to the presenter in the street. So this was I put out a couple things here. Initially, the steam from the manhole is like great. I thought the volumetrics on this were awesome. So we're back here I think it's Fabrice, and you've got the no entry sign coming through the steam out of the manhole, which I think this looks really, really good. It's a very high quality volumetric. You can't really see it pixelated too much. It might look a little pixelated here, but I think that's compression from the video. I don't think that's actually because of the quality of the asset that's being used, because it looks good in motion. You can see some contact shadows again down here, but not here. Contact shadows over here. So it's a little, again, contact shadows, a little inconsistent. More or less the same scene we opened with. Now there was something here that I thought was interesting. So we have this red arrow on this sign right here, and it looks like it's got some indirect lighting, so possibly ray traced lighting coming off of this sign onto the bottom of this TV frame. If this TV was producing light, I don't think you would see that, but it's not impossible. Now, one thing to note is that there's a slight, and I mean very slight, orange glow on these rocks. So I'm wondering if this is light from the sign or if it's bouncing off of the side of the bus. So that might be giving it a little too much credit, and it's kind of hard to tell, but it's kind of orangish right through here. There's a slight hint to it. So as we continue to pan around, you're going to notice this car on the right that's on fire. So I wanted to point this out because this kind of sticks out to me. The lighting on this is not great. So there's lighting coming through the bottom of the car, which means the whole bottom of the car would have to have been burnt out by now. So I don't know what these flames are burning if the bottom is gone, because presumably it would go like chair down and consume it that way. So yeah, I'm really not sure here. So we're getting light through here. It looks like there's light in the wheel well and in the trunk also. So the wheel well has got a hole in it where the flame is coming through, I guess. Anyway, the lighting in this is really not very good at all. So yeah. Now, the next scene was really funny because right here, as we switch to flamethrower guy, the guy says we have more resolution and more dynamic lightings. Those are his words. So right as we switch to this scene, and it's pretty hilarious. So we will watch here the flames from the flamethrower. One are like really low quality. Like some of this is compression artifacting, but like this looks not high quality. So not very high resolution. Then we have this going off in the background behind the flamethrower guy, and we get this scene right here. Now this to me is disappointing because we have one big light source that's to the upper right, it looks like, of this character, or like either directly above him or to his upper right. So like up here, and it's coming down, and it's shooting rays. If it's shooting rays, which I don't think it is, I think it's just baked cube lighting, and its light is casting shadows here, it's casting shadows here, and it's casting them this way. So you notice how this is a really sharp angle here, and this is a much more shallow angle. So pretty inconsistent. Light from the flames, no light at all. Nothing is on this guy right here. There's no reflection off of the volumetric effect of this smoke from this bomb. I think it looks okay. It looks a little low res, a little compression-y, but it doesn't look terrible. I think what does look terrible is this right here, where it contacts the floor. So it's not interacting with the environment very good. It's a little distracting. This scene right here, I didn't really see anything that jumped out at me as particularly bad. Maybe some contact shadows, but this is also a low light scene, so you might be forgiven for that. You're going to be forgiven for a lot of things because it's an 8-watt SoC, 8 or 9 watts, like we just talked about. Now this is, I think, another scene that is pretty poor. The lighting's pretty unnatural here. We have a lot of light coming through this right here. We have no light from this explosion at all. We have what looks like a string of lights right here, but I actually think this is the top of the fence, and it's just alazing through the volumetric effect of this explosion. Because I don't think, I'm just going to slow this down a little more here. I don't actually think that this is like this is very convincing at all. Look, there's flames all over can we just talk about a dude like getting this close to this explosion? Like, there's a lot of heat there coming off of that thing. So props to you. But you notice these flames coming up behind this piece of debris here. No lighting coming off of any of these at all whatsoever. Still not convinced that's a light source. I don't know what it's supposed to be. This here, the scene looked fine. You have one big indirect light source. Chucks a grenade, it goes flying, and explodes up next to this guy, I guess. It's like basically, hey, shut up, dude. We don't want to hear you talk anymore, which is rude from a character in a game that you created. So, lighting here, again, with the scene, the flames on the car, just not great. Again, same scene as we opened with, and we've seen twice already. Just really, really rough. You can see kind of what more the effect, we'll say, of like true to life lighting looks like in the studio. So this is studio lighting. He's got it on his left and on his right, and they've given it's a little bit of a yellowish tint on the right side and a little more white on the left. So they tried to color match him to the scene really well. So give him props for that. He flicks off some sparks that just appear out of nowhere. All right, now we're going on to Honkai Star Rail. So this is, I think, technically speaking, this game actually looks a lot better because of the anime aesthetic. So you can be forgiven for missing shadows and things like that because they're not going for realism. But there's a lot of similar tricks being played. So we have one big bright light source. Again, studio lighting, they put a yellow here and they kept her kind of a more whitish blue over here. That light source is creating shadows along this handrail. Even though these handrails are two different angles, their shadows are in the same actually no, their shadows are going two different directions. It just looked like it's split right down the middle here with the sun off to the side. I don't think it would be like, I think these would be straight and then these would be over here. So I don't know that those shadows are quite good. We have some indirect lighting, so baked cube lighting right here along these stones. No shadows, no contact shadows on the grass. Some baked shadows here along the bushes and on the back side of the stair, the armrest there. The handguard for the armrest. This is something interesting. The volumetric effect here actually looks significantly worse than in the Division. Like this, like looks very low resolution to me. Division, from what we saw, had much better volumetric effects. So we're going to keep moving ahead. The overhead dungeon here, there wasn't really much to look at here. I think that we're missing a shadow under this branch and under this one. This branch to me looks like it comes from the left side of this walkway, crosses over onto the right side. So see how it goes like all the way over here? So if you were running under this, you would run under the branch and it would travel from your left to your right. Otherwise, because how stylized this is, you can kind of get away with a lot. Doesn't look very realistic, not meant to look realistic. So I don't think that they bothered with trying to add too much to it, you know. Here, the waves look really good. I would be really, really interested to know if this is actually rendered in-game or if this is something that's pre-rendered. This whole scene, obviously, for the show is pre-rendered, but like in-game, when you get to this moment, if this is actually, these waves are actually generated as 3D objects. So they look really good. I mean, they look really, really good. Same thing again here. Really good texturing, you know, parting of the Red Sea kind of moment here. You know, and let's see, I don't think there was much else I had note-wise, except for I think maybe the battle scene. So yeah, you can see here what I mean about these. This looks a much lower resolution texture than what was in Division. Now this battle scene here, there's no lighting. Whoops. There's no lighting come off of this character's attack. I don't know if this is supposed to be a male or female. So this character, no contact shadows for anything. No lighting effects off of the attacks. So flashy, but not showing off any ray tracing prowess here. I don't think that actually this lady, when she's talking, I actually don't think she mentions anything to do with lighting here. The character models still look great though. I mean, this is really good, like high triangle count character models. Very good looking. And then Min Wang here. This is Genshin Impact. So basically, I'll move this out of the way a little bit. Basically, same game engine. In many respects, same game, except this is full real-time action, while Star Rail is turn-based attacks. So he mentions metal effects upscaling, which we are, I think, going to see a little bit of. Again, it's all pre-baked shadows and lighting. They put some shadows in over here on these plants, but nothing in for the grass. There's no lights from any of this character's effects. You notice these orange orbs floating around here. No light coming off of them at all whatsoever. Shooting them into this felled enemy. No lighting effects coming off of that. So faster response times, that's good. This is all like as it gets further away, the texturing drops significantly. You can see that there's no texturing on this windmill, but we have texturing on this windmill. I think that the tiles on this roof actually look good. That you can see them from this far away is great. Shadowing looks a little bit inconsistent. So I don't know if the sun is supposed to be directly over this person or if it's supposed to be further back and like it's higher up, but further back along the landscape, which is why it creates this kind of weird shadowing effects. So we go through a couple more scenes here. This was a scene that I actually took a minute to really sit down and look at because it happens so fast if you're watching this live. So we're gonna go playback speed 25%. The texturing here looks really good. Texturing on the boardwalk, you can see it a little bit and it's faded right here, but you kind of get the impression of it, and you have this incomplete arch right here. These temples look like they're much more in focus than these back here. But this is what catches my eye. There is some weird muddiness. Kind of, it's not like compression artifacting from the stream. It's hard to know exactly what it is because down here, it could be motion blur because of what we're seeing down here in the bottom left and along the sails of the ship a little bit right here. But it's this Chinese style city. This to me looks like it's like upscaling. So this might be like metal effects upscaling, and they're upscaling the textures on the trees to make it look like it's higher resolution. So this is an interesting design choice here, if this is indeed metal effects. But it also would make sense because things that are far away, you don't need to be as clear, but you want to give the impression that they're high resolution, and as you get closer, you can kind of play some visual tricks with upscaling to make it look like it, you kind of reduce the pop in a little bit. So I think it's a good use for it. When we come down under the archway, we notice how this is much more in focus here. So again, I think this is upscaling, but these, you can kind of pick out the leaves in this tree a little bit better than, say, like these here. Now again, this might be motion blur a little bit, but this right here just looks upscaled to me. I don't know how else to describe it. So we're gonna phase out. They're gonna show a couple more things. This happens so fast and there's so much motion, hard to pull out anything useful. It looks good. Makes me wonder if this was actually captured on an iPhone or if this was captured on like a desktop version of the game, because the resolution's really good and the character models are great. Like look at the lines on this character. Like she's very close to the foreground. So, and I don't know enough about Genshin Impact to tell you who any of these people are. But like look, her hair, and you can see the lines of her hair. So really, really high resolution. So I'm wondering if this was like a desktop capture because you can see, look how much clearer the roof is over here. So yeah. And then her attack here is really well done. No lighting effects, but we've come to expect that at this point. Okay, now we are going to get into what might be the best demo so far of the day. And this is Tsuyoshi Kanda from Capcom speaking about Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4. So we need to take a step back here real quick. So we have this top-down opening, and I just want to say, look at the ground floor foliage textures. They are so good. And even these plants over here, this looks so good. Probably fairly low resolution, but wow, does that look good? Looks great. When we switch from the overhead view into the front-facing view here, this actually looks really good too. Again, ground floor debris and texturing looks really good. The plants, how intertangled they are, looks very believable. The lighting, the volumetric fog that's going on here, like it's thick at the ground, but it's dispersed and thinner up top, looks awesome. You have these shadow rays coming through. I don't know if that's ray traced, but it looks really good. So I'd just really stellar. I mean, I think the lighting is a little weird on the leaves here. It looks a little too bright right here if the light source is back this way, but very good. Okay, in this scene, it's hard to pull out any details here, but again, generally speaking, the fog looks really good. It's a very thick fog, very hazy. I think that we're dealing with a fairly high resolution picture here, because if you look at the fencing over here on the right, you see how you can see each individual post here. Like these are very close together, thin not artifacts, but resources. What are the models? I'm trying to figure out what the right terminology is. It's escaping me, but it looks really good right here along the fence. There's no aliasing, there's no blurring between the different posts. Just really excellent. So it makes me think it's pretty high resolution. Now this right here is a kind of a mixed bag of sorts. This looks awesome. I mean, her polygon count, the triangle count, is just got to be through the roof. Look at the eyes and the nose, the skin texturing is excellent. I mean, it's a little squared off up here, but it's a minor detail that you won't notice during normal gameplay. Right here around the fingers too, but nothing terrible. This is great. How like imperfect this looks. How it's like bent. Like this is not new from the Ace Hardware store. Like this thing looks beat up, long used. So this is great. I really like this a lot. What I don't like is that this is much more in front of her than it is down below her, and this light looks like it's coming up too harsh. So it's too much from the below and not enough from the forward, and so it creates a very dramatic look, but not a very realistic look. I mean, that said, because I mean, look at like this ridge right here, her eyebrow ridge kind of blocks her forehead, but I don't think that would be the case with a lantern that's almost eye level with you. And I mean, this whole side of your face having no light at all is not really. It's a little sus. I mean, what's really sus is that this is an iPhone capture. Like, I mean, this is like at least GTX 1060 levels of graphics quality, maybe even better. I mean, it's like, this looks so good. I love the imperfections on the lantern handle, but yeah, otherwise it's looking pretty good. So on to the next scene here. We have this guy on the water. I don't know the characters. I've never played Resident Evil, so you have to forgive me a little bit for not knowing everybody. And here we go. I think this is Leon, but again, never played Resident Evil, so I've seen pictures, and I'm assuming this is Leon. Hair looks good. Light on the water, no reflections. Like, there's a very diffused bounce lighting here along this wall, but there's not enough for what I'm assuming is pretty shallow. I mean, he's probably, ankle deep in this, so if you've got a light hitting the surface of the water and then there's stone beneath it, it's going to reflect a lot of that light back up and around in the environment. So we're not really seeing any of that bounce lighting. We also look like we've got some kind of hero light behind him. I mean, this is obviously so that you can see the character, but it just doesn't look very natural. Very dramatic, but not very realistic. Okay, this is a cool scene here because you have one light source, everything else is dark, so you're only getting what's dead ahead of you. Now, so it's hard to pull out too much to say negative about this. The only thing I think maybe again, hero lighting, just a very faint hero lighting for the girl here in the library, but nothing very bad. Again, very dramatic. I think, though, when you look at this, you've got some recycled textures like this. You have this angled book, a thick white book, tall, skinny, and then a short, kind of pinkish book. And you have the same thing. Angled book, thick white, tall, skinny, and then short, pinkish, right? So, again, same thing here. So you're getting a lot of reused models and assets in this scene. So, again, same thing up here. Yeah, I think... And then this right here, I think, is the same as this one right here. And you can see it because of the lighting very well, but this is more or less the same model. Very dramatic, though. Looks good, though. Looks really good. Very spooky. We got some... Ooh, what is that thing? That thing looks scary. All right, this was an interesting scene right here. So this looks to me like just, gun nerd coming out of me a little bit. I think this is a short barrel 1911. So maybe a Colt. Maybe a Springfield, something like that. But you got this older gentleman right here. You got this big, bright light source right here. Immediately, there's this kind of what sticks out is you've got, the coloring on this gun looks great. Like, it looks really good. But you've got lighting coming from the left, which is lighting up this gun, but it's also lighting up this wall. So if you have this light coming through, there's something right around, like it's almost like in his armpit, that's lighting up this wall right here. So as he's reaching for something on the table, this monster comes through the ceiling and grabs him and pulls him up. Ooh, look at the face. Great modeling there. Wow. You got all the wood splintering everywhere. So yeah, you have a little bit of light on this, but this all looks pre-baked lighting. None of this looks ray traced to me at all. These big monsters here, definitely nerve-wracking, very dramatic. Lots of light coming up from the bottom here. Looks pretty good overall, but the lighting on this is incorrect. Like, this side is really dark, but that's really bright. When it looks like the grating right here would partially cut off, so you'd see like almost like a shadow, like a curved shadow running across this part of this piece of this control box or whatever we're calling it right here. Not again, like, it looks good because it looks dramatic, but not very realistic. But it does look very good. Whoa, that's... Okay, when I first saw this, I thought that was an axe. That's a scythe. That's pretty effing wild, man. Holy crap. I definitely do not want... Look, there's an axe right there. Whoa, so he had two things thrown at him? Look at this. So he just... Oh, okay, there's the axe from this guy, and then this guy has the scythe. So it's like they like fly at you at the same time. That was pretty rad. But we wanted to look at this. I wanted to look at this scene just a hair, not this one. We're gonna go back. Okay, this is good right here. Okay, so you got two primary light sources that are lighting up everything around them nearby, which is good. And then it's lighting up this arm rail right here. That looks good. Everything about this scene actually looks really good. I like this a lot. If we're going for realism again, dramatic but not realistic. We have a small light source right here, which is reading a little light right there, which is good. But it looks like there's a little bit of bleed in through this floor onto these pillars for this handrail. So notice how this side is facing this light source, and 90 degrees to its right, that right side is dark, like on all of these pillars going all the way down. So this is a little bit more lit because it's closer to the light source, but it's pretty much dark all the way around. This looks like it's the opposite. This looks like the side facing the light source is dark, and then the right side is lit. So that's what I mean by there's a bleed through of this light source through the floor to hit that. But otherwise looks really good. Like the woodworking here on these. God, I remember having one of my relatives had a house that had these kind of pillars in the arm rails. They were really always kind of goofy looking to me, but I like the straight edge stuff. This little bulbous like vase looking thing was always kind of weird. Anyway. All right, this is a cool scene. Good explosion. Okay, so explosion in front of the cannon, but we see light coming up from the bottom. This is a baked lighting situation. This is not ray traced, I don't believe. Diffusion coming through the hair looks good. She is like way too brightly lit. Looks like we had a catapult firing something here. Man, I've never played these games. Like seeing scenes like this, I'm like, oh, this looks crazy. So, but yeah, we've got this. I'll move this up out of the way. Her hair texturing. Look at that. That looks, a little rough on the hair texturing, but there's a lot of movement happening here, so maybe they can get away with it. But yeah, this lighting up from the bottom of the cannon, and then you have this light bleed through right along the rails here. Like this would all be dark if the explosion was in front of that cannon. So you have explosion in the front, lighting from the bottom, and then here, also look at this, check this out. I didn't really think about it until just now. This is all lighting from the top. Like this part of the cannon is lit from the bottom. See how this is dark, and you have all these rivets. You have this part right here that's lit from the top. And this is lit from the top. That's lit from the bottom, but the light source is in front. So, and then you have a shadow cast right here. So again, top and maybe to the right. Like that's really brightly lit. So that looks like it could be believable it's coming from here. But this explosion actually looks like it's coming from underneath the cannon. So dramatic, not realistic. So a little rough there. Light goes out really fast for an explosion that's still producing a lot of light. Okay, and then there wasn't a whole lot in this scene, I don't think. So you see, so you see some shadowing here, like ghosting, I mean, not shadowing. You see some ghosting here. Oh no, it's two different characters, never mind. Take that back. It's two different characters, it's just one hit. Giant monster beetle, ugh. Again, if this is from in-game, still shots look really good. Very creepy backwoods kind of vibe. Oh boy, this is cool. Check that. Oh, he's out of ammo. That's rough. Texturing on this looks all good. The light, I don't know where the light's coming from. Maybe like the light is strapped to the side of his head. You see dark right here, but nothing dark behind this arm right here. Like it's not darkening this character at all. So, lots of explosions, lots of particles. I mean, lots of different effects there. A lot of models coming through that. Genshin impact, I believe, based on these buildings. Looks good though. Okay, we don't need. I don't think we need. Bring this up. Here we go. Speed up just a little bit of mobile gaming. Yep, looks good. Wow, wow, that looks good, man. Wow, look at the texture modeling on this. This is what makes me think, like, is this like really a mobile? This is a mobile port, man. This looks so sharp. So, Yeah, again, lots of texture, a lot of stuff going on here. So really good transition out. So this right here, I wanted to show you this. This was actually pretty egregious in my mind. Okay, so you look along this hallway. You have a flame here, a flame here, and a flame here. So in this flame right here, dark wall, no light casted on it at all. Then it's a bright spot across the hall from that. Then we have more flames, dark spot. So there's definitely not ray tracing happening in this at all. Absolutely not. All of this is lit very brightly. Like, look, this is lit from behind the pipe. Like, there's light off to the right of it. So it looks pretty high res, though. I mean, overall, like the on-screen resolution looks good, and the texturing looks good. Like, the bricks on the wall look really good. Let's see, Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4 remake. Now this is this scene right here for Assassin's Creed Mirage is outstanding. I really, really like this one a lot. So, to me, this opening sequence, it looks great. The light looks like it's coming from behind the camera. So, like, think of it as the camera is moving with the light particles and the light rays, and it is coming through. It's hitting the floor, and then it looks like it's reflecting up and lighting everything else around it. There's kind of a weird haze right here. I'm not sure why that is, but it's conceivable that as this light hits the floor and then bounces out around the scene, as it reflects light off of each other, you get this kind of residual lighting. So it's not very dark, but it's significantly darker than what else is happening around you. So this looks fairly close to how my eyesight works when I'm going from a very brightly lit area into a darker lit area. There maybe not. It's hard to tell on a 2D image. This may not be ray traced because this right here is really dark while this is really bright. So not sure, but the rest of this indirect lighting looks good. So this here, now this scene right here is not doing this so many favors. This is actually, this canal scene is unfortunately looking much worse. The shadows from the tree and the water wheel are like way too strong from the sun that's up overhead like this way. This lighting, these shadows are just like way too intense. Like, I know the water's muddy, but it's just not natural looking. I actually went and had to look up some pictures, and I'll try to see if I've got them here. That's my Twitter. Here we go. So this is similar idea. So the sun is the primary light source here. It's noon-ish, maybe a little before, maybe a little after, but it's high. The sun is high up in the sky. It's casting really contrasty shadows on water. Now this scene, this is real life, so this is a lot closer. So the sun is again high up near noon, creating a slight shadow on these guardrails for the steps, but no shadowing along this part of this rock, nor is there any shadow coming from this fixture here. It's casting a shadow onto itself, but no shadow on the water. This is all reflecting off the water. So this being really dark is unfortunately not very realistic. So here's another idea here from the Hawaii Home and Remodeling Group. So here, if we look at this image, I don't want to visit the site, but just to show you here. So the sun here is very high up, very limited cloud cover, just like in the games. There's like just a couple clouds here. Sun close to high noon. You've got a little bit of shadowing right along the inside of that lip. So it would be like this wall right here would be dark. That right there would all be dark. And then this is reflection. This isn't shadow. That's reflection. Now you're going to look at this and you're going to say, but look, there's shadow right there. That's shadow coming off the bottom of the pool. Because the water is clear, you can see that shadow. But if this water was murky, you wouldn't see that shadow. So, and then the reflection that's coming off of it, because this water is clear and this is blue, gives it kind of a bluish hue all the way around. But you notice how, because of the way the sun is positioned, there's not really a shadow here, which is expected. But going back to our Assassin's Creed demo, unfortunately it's just not very was not great, not great in that regard. And then this right here is a bit disappointing. So you have a really strong shadow under that bridge, but given how diffuse the lighting is in the whole scene, you wouldn't really have a shadow there. I mean, it would be shadowed, but it wouldn't be this contrast. Like there wouldn't be this much contrast. It wouldn't be this well defined. And then I think another disappointment is you're not really seeing any reflections here. Like this looks like screen space reflections to me. This doesn't look like ray traced at all. So like this boat is like barely reflected in right here, and this character isn't reflected in the least. So, and as you can see kind of here in the background, it's much more pronounced. Texturing looks great though. Like, I wish we got a close-up of this scene. That would have been awesome to see. All right, so now they're going to go to the camera. So which brings us back. We're going to jump back a little ways. We're going to go to this ray tracing demo. So this is an image, a demo that they put together for this, basically for this presentation. And this is a scene that's all lit with cube maps. So none of this is ray traced. This is important because it establishes our light sources. So we've got a light source here, even though we don't see a light. There's a light source here, no light. Light source here, no light. Light source here, but no visible light. You've got this fascia up here, or this trimming that's really well lit. You got these vents that are really, really well lit. You've got two central flanking orange lights in the ceiling. These look like cathodes, like they're long. So they probably have like a 180-degree arc that they're putting out. Like if you're looking at it from the like north-south pole of like down here and looking along the length of it, there would be light coming out to the left and to the right by 180 degrees. And you have something similar down here, although these look like LED rods. They don't really look like cathodes. They might just be a cathode tube though, not the actual like light fixture you'd be accustomed to. So we've got a lot of orange and white lighting here with some blue textures on the left, and we've got these reflective canisters. First things first, like right off, no shadows on the cabling at all. Like, doesn't look like there's any kind of shadowing here. Okay, so carrying on. So we're looking at kind of a 50-50 split on the lighting. Like you get a lot of orange in the center, and then you have a lot of white on the flanks, and then right around the edges of the room. So orange center, more pure white in the around the edges. We're just gonna jump ahead a little bit here, and they're gonna show us. I think it's right about 350 is when they actually start to demo this. Yeah, okay. So they're actually going to start transitioning to, I'm going to slow this all the way down so we can get a good look at it. They're going to start wiping the screen. So there's going to be the ray trace overlay is going to hit the whole screen as it comes across left to right. So look at, already we're seeing like a different effect for lighting. Like you're getting these rivets right here are already reflecting off the back of that. You can kind of see there's a little bit of reflection on these canisters, just a hair. And we're going to get right about halfway through. Okay, so notice that this is reflecting the light from this light source, and the non-ray trace side is not. So this kind of brightens up and pulls out the textures a little bit better than this side for sure. Like ray tracing is really good at kind of lighting up those areas for you, and then in shadowed areas keeping them nice and dark. So as we come all the way across, you notice how all the texturing. So this is like a polished kind of aluminum. It's not chrome, but it has a good set of a good reflective property to it. So, and you notice here again, these are showing up here right along this upper trim. So we have a distinctly different scene. No shadowing on the cables though. Keep that in, like, still no shadowing here, but you have decent reflections off of these canisters. What else did I notice? Oh, you get a lot of detail now in the ceiling from everything that's happening below it. Okay, so now they're taking us to this scene that's split screen, software rendering versus hardware rendering of ray tracing. And it's the same scene mostly. And things that jumped out at me are these vents don't look the same. Like, you notice there's some artifacting right here that's kind of this gray, kind of darker gray color. And this is a little bit muddier. The vents aren't as clear. Yeah, we have a much higher frame rate over here, and as you can see, it almost looks like, this might be because of how low the frame rate is, but it looks like this is actually like a few frames ahead, but again, that might be because of how the significant difference in the frame rate. But you can see it here, how the vents aren't as clean on this side. This metal pieces that are touching aren't as good. I don't know if these are actually like different resolutions, if there's upscaling that's going on, or if this is artifacting from like the CPU trying to process the ray tracing effects. Whatever CPU they're using. They never disclose that, so. Pretty consistent otherwise, though, I think. Okay, so as we were coming out, I think, all right, so this is something that I noticed as we were coming out. So you can kind of see it here, but it's much more pronounced here. You see this vertical banding that's occurring on the inside of this door. This kind of makes me think that there might be some upscaling going on. It's kind of a first hint that makes me say, maybe some upscaling happening here. It's really along the left inside of this door frame. It's very telling. And as we progress forward, we're going to turn to the right, and we're going to see some of this green foliage right here, In this, you can tell it looks much sharper than here. So this looks like this is a much lower resolution that was upscaled through like metal effects or FSR or something like that. So we're going to keep moving forward. You can also notice in the floor here, the ray tracing isn't as good on this, which makes me think, again, lower resolution, so there's less detail for it to work with. And then you can see the textures up here are a bit muddy compared to over here, a bit less consistent. Again, no shadows with the cabling on the ground. I mean, it's just a demo, I get it, but like you can see the difference in the color for the reflections on this black mirrored walkway here. Something else that kind of jumps out at me is this this right here almost looks, it's hard to see without zooming in, but this looks a little bit more muddy, almost like checkerboarded compared to this. I think the level of detail is just a little different between these canisters. Like right here, these kind of trimmings look like a little softer on this side. Hard to say for sure. You can see some ghosting right here. Again, probably artifacts from the upscaling mechanism. Like this sticks out a little bit more here. I mean, these are pretty soft shadows on both, but this looks like it's a little softer than this side. Not by much, but maybe just a hair. Like this is a slightly lower res shadow map that was in use. Now, this is where there's something interesting here that happens. So we're just going to back this up by like 1 second. I want you to watch the right side propeller of this drone as it moves across this door frame, and watch the contrast of the colors here. So watch. You see that? That shadowing, that ghosting effect that's occurring? That, I think this is also metal effects upscaled. That's our only real hint to it. I don't really see it here through the guardrails. Like you can see it here in this. You can see a lot of vertical banding here, but you don't really see it on that. Maybe easier, so you actually get a little bit right here. So I think this is also metal effects upscaled, but this might be like, this might be a lower resolution, and it might be set to like performance, metal effects performance. Well, this is a higher resolution and set to metal effects maybe quality mode. So that's it. That's all I really had to show for just things that I thought. You can see you got a tells right there. For for what I saw that kind of jumped out at me as I went through this presentation. So hopefully you enjoyed it. You found something useful here. Maybe some hints as to what we can expect with the A17 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Looking forward to it. Questions, comments down below. Please leave them if you got them. And I look forward to chatting with you as well. You can hit me up on Twitter at Apple Gaming SE. So whether you're watching on Apple Gaming SE or whether you're watching on Polymatrix, I appreciate your time. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Thank you now. Bye-bye.